Eos got right onto it. The idea of an absolute expert in the field treating him like his partner was too great to put into words, really. His determination newly fueled, he assembled some artifacts to run trapdoor tests, a standard procedure to fight hidden alarms inside the door mechanism. These wouldn't be visible if they existed, so it was normally a wise choice to test doors beforehand, if there was enough time. The Noikis finished with a pleasing click. "Just 1 second for these trap tests, please," said Eos, his hands hastily at work on the artifacts. "Is standard precision alright, or should I do the extra versions too?"
"Whatever. These complicated traps aren't used anywhere these days anyway. Leave it out,"
replied Zark. "Alright, it's finished. There's no traps."
Eos heard a door opening, and soon later the sound of drawers being searched and documents rustling. "I've got a safe with Type 3 lock here, and an astral server at the back end of the room. Look into that," came Zark's voice through the comm. The safe wouldn't be very difficult to hedge if the type was known, and experienced agents could normally tell from looking at it which kind of lock they employed. Eos tried some of HE's standard combinations, and one fit, much to his satisfaction. At last, his preparations were paying off. The astral server, on the other hand, would be more of a problem. Astral was a spell normally used to store objects and produce them when they were needed, but as with locks, these were protected by Born-type identities, in this case, coordinates.
"Zark, see if you can find any hints on the Born on that astral, please," said Eos, trying to sound professional.
"Adapting that field speak already, are we? I'm onto it,"
was the reply, accompanied by a silent snicker and the sound of footsteps.
"Wait a second, kid. There's something up."
Silence on the comlink.
Eos's hand stopped. There was the sound of feet running through the hall, then a door opening, and Zark's calm breathing on the comm. 2 men were talking with angered voices, shouting orders into their own communication devices. Things like, "Switch to emergency channel 1433, or place more sec on the lower levels." Zark's slow breathing rendered a strange opposite to this loud background. His arm would have needed to be very close to his face indeed for Eos, himself in tense silence. How could you keep your calm in a situation like this? Truly the mark of a seasoned expert, he thought. Eos didn't dare to move a muscle, afraid that he would blow Zark's hiding spot through the comlink. The 2 men were searching the room now. One of them checked the safe, finding it unlocked, and reporting to his colleague with an upset shout. Zark's voice came whispering through the comlink. "Keep you cool, kid. I can deal with these." Eos wanted to protest. He wanted to remind him that there were probably more guards coming, and that in any way the whole building was in alarm state now. That there might have been an advance trap on the door that had sounded a silent alarm. But then Eos remembered that he was the rookie on the team, that Zark would know all this already, that he likely had a plan to deal with everything. So Eos kept silent. For a while, there was nothing. The 2 men were talking to each other silently, and Eos couldn't understand anything. Then, "Calculate accurate, son. Zark out." Eos's eyes widened. He hadn't expected this. Calculate accurate was a code command. It signaled that the agent would cut communication, normally because they were at risk of being captured, and didn't want to allow the comlink or interface to be tracked by the opposition. At least, that's what Eos had learned in class. Could Zark really be referring to this? It was a drastic measure, and not commonly used. But then, that senior would be exactly the kind of man to fall back on archaic methods in a pinch, so this was definitely possible. It looked as if this mission was taking an unexpected turn for the worse. But what now? What was Eos supposed to do now? Just sit in the hedge, waiting? His experience with Zark told him that it would be all right. Zark would
take out the guards, re-establish the comlink, and that would be it. Or would it? Comlink was easy to reconnect on. It worked like a radio, and Eos knew all emergency channels. But the interface that allowed him to track his partner's movements inside the building, and vice versa, couldn't be reactivated remotely. So why cut it off when Zark was confident there was no danger? Then Eos had an idea, and all of a sudden he felt very smart. Hastily, he grabbed the comlink and adjusted the channel to 1433. Immediately, he could hear security forces shouting from all corners of the complex.
Blue 3rd, are you alright? What's your status? Report! Blue 3rd, come in. What's the matter up there?
This is Red 1st. I'm going up there with 2. Cover the rear entrance, anybody. Just anybody.
Yellow 1st here. I'm at the rear entrance. Just what's going on?
It's a break-in at the summit room. Server's probably compromised. No, no it isn't, thought Eos. Not yet, unfortunately. At least now it was clear that whatever HE was storing in that server, it was important.
Red 1st, I'm at the staircase. We're taking the floor now. They can't be far.
Blue 7, I'm coming up there as well. Check the upper floors. They might have an exit prepared for them beforehand.
Good call, Blue 7. Anybody up there?
Yes, sir. This is Green 5. I'm arranging a perimeter.
Red 1st, we have contact. Single attacker. We've solid rapidly from our side. Back up now. This isn't looking good, thought Eos. Panicking, he knocked over some artifact to his right, but he didn't care. Dozens of men were probably closing in on Zark right now. He wanted to do something to help in some way. He thought about emergency locking some of the doors on the 3rd floor, but it was far too late for that. A diversion alarm wouldn't do anything either. And without interface, he didn't even know Zark's location anyway. So how would he know which doors to hedge? What was he supposed to do? Was there any way he could help apart from sitting here, waiting for Zark to get captured? Noise on the comlink, followed by Red 1st clearing his throat.
This is Red 1st. We got the man. Company has recovered.
Situation's under control, but he had help. Searched the whole complex grounds. He could be anywhere.
Yellow 1st, what are we looking for, sir?
Hedgers or mobile strikers, anything. They might be armed. Stay sharp. Eos immediately threw a timid look over his shoulder. They had caught Zark and were looking for him now. He would need to move. Looking down on his equipment, he realized that he wouldn't have time to pack everything. Hastily, he grabbed some of the most essential artifacts, the comlink, the Henrik table, and he crawled out of his hiding spot under the hedge. Meanwhile, Red 1st continued talking to his officers.
The man is dangerous. Take 3 to contain him. Actually, I'll go as well. This has top priority. Alert other parts of the complex as well. This might be a larger raid. This one doesn't look like a professional agent, but we can't be sure. Notify communications HQ as well. They need to double security on all doors everywhere. Take no chances. Multiple shouts, Yes, sir,
echoed on the channel, as Eos was hastily making his way along the hedge. He didn't really know which way to go. All this was happening so fast, and none of his training had prepared him for something like this. His partner compromised, the mission objective out of reach, himself hunted. What were you supposed to do in that kind of situation? He nervously switched to his operator's channel. That was the last person he wanted advice from right now.
Hello, operator. This is Agent Karras. My location is compromised. Actually, our whole team is compromised, and is anybody there? Operator!
No answer. He tried a different channel. Still nothing. Great. This was getting way too hot for a first mission. Panting, Eos reached the end of the hedge at the complex's most outward tip. In front of him was the field that he had crossed earlier. A bit further down, the city's buildings were visible. If the corpse were in fact on his trail, he would be seen crossing over to the city, even at night. The field was too open and provided no cover. That was not an option. From his right, he heard shouting. He turned his head and saw a flashlight in the distance coming up alongside where the hedge extended westwards. 2 figures were searching the hedge. Eos suddenly became aware of his own increasingly fast heartbeat. He turned back to where he had come from. Nobody was there. Just why didn't I pack an invis coil, he thought. It wouldn't matter anyway, since those guards probably had silencer devices with them. He had no choice but to go back in the direction of his hiding spot.
The men were approaching quickly, so Eos ran. As he turned at the tip of the hedge and began running southwards, he could already hear angry shouting behind him. The man had seen his figure in the dark. Great, thought Eos, his mind quickly oscillating between sarcasm and sheer panic. While running, he tried to contact the operator again. Still nobody there. Just what was going on over there? Had the other teams been captured as well? Even the operator himself? If that was the case, Eos didn't even want to think about his chances then. After a tense minute of exhausted running, he reached a spot under the hedge, the two guards still in hot pursuit. His equipment was still there. Eos wanted to take some of it. There was so much that could be useful. But right now, he was fearing for his life, and that took top priority. He looked around nervously, still panting. He had gained some distance on the two pursuers, but they were still approaching. And to the other side. Was that a flashlight? He couldn't tell. Maybe his exhausted brain was just playing tricks on his eyes. His gaze flew over the field. It was still extending in all directions. No doubt, if he tried to run across it, he'd probably be shot. But shots could miss, couldn't they? Was it worth a try? Eos turned around on the spot in panic, sometimes looking across the field, then again to his pursuers on both sides, unable to think of anything useful. Invis coil. Didn't bring one. Illusion coil. Didn't bring one either. Diversion alarm. Way too slow. And the whole idea was ridiculous. Teleport out. Way too slow. Ridiculous. Was there anything he could do? He looked down to his equipment again. A drop of sweat falling upon the surface of his interface. None of these gadgets could help him now. None of his hedging skills could either. It was at this point that a voice echoed in Eos's mind. It was the voice of Enster, his teacher at class. Be unorthodox in everything, it said. Right, thought Eos, that's it. He drew out his Enric table and flung it open to the first page. Movement spells of every sort. Hastily, he crawled into the hedge and pulled out the large bag that he had used to carry his equipment earlier. He threw it to the ground outside the hedge, smacked his fist onto one of the spell circles from the Henrik table, and with probably more power than was advised for this spell, the bag flew out across the field, sliding through the short grass and dragging some of his artifacts with it. Perfect, thought Eos, as he turned around and made his way through the thick web of branches. Behind him, the men with the flashlight spells were closing in, clearly distracted by a small object that was speeding across the field away from the building. He heard shots echoing in the night. As Eos crawled out of the hedge on the other side, now standing on corporate ground, he heard the security guards meeting behind him, somewhere on the field. He couldn't tell whether they had caught the bag or if it was still moving, but it didn't matter anyways. They had probably called backup. He needed to move.